Welcome to Microsoft Access 2013 Beginner Level 1, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com here on YouTube. This video is Lesson 11 of 12 plus an introduction. If this is the first video you're watching in the series, click on the link shown to start this course from the beginning. Otherwise, we'll start Lesson 11 right now. In Lesson 11, we're going to build a couple of different reports based on our customer table, including mailing labels. So far, we've learned how to build tables, queries, and forms. Now, reports are very similar in design to forms. However, reports are designed to be presented to someone who's not using your database. You can print them out, you can send them via an email attachment, and so on. Forms are used for entering and editing data in the database. Reports are used for taking that information and displaying it for someone else. Creating a report is very similar to creating a form. First, we pick the table or query that has the data. Then we click on Create. And then over here to the right, you'll see the Reports section. Now, just like forms, there are a couple of different ways you can build reports. First, we have the basic report, where Access just goes ahead and just builds you a simple report, just like the simple form designer. Then we have Report Design, which starts you from scratch with a blank report and lets you get in there and modify all the nooks and crannies and do all kinds of crazy things. We're going to talk more about report design in future classes. Blank report sets up the report for you and then lets you go ahead and put the fields where you want in layout mode. We have the Report Wizard, which will ask you a few questions and then set the report up for you. I actually kind of like the Report Wizard. Then we have labels for making mailing labels and such. We'll walk through the label maker in a few minutes. Let's start with the simple report builder right here. Just click on that, and after a second, Access puts together a real simple report for you. Now, this looks just like the continuous forms we saw earlier when we were building forms, right? It looks just like the multiple items form. If I scroll down here, you'll see all the customers listed in order. There's a count down here on the bottom. You've got the title across the top here, which we can click and edit. Customer report for PC resale, or whatever you want to put in there. That's just a label. Over to the right-hand side, you'll see the current date and time. Now, I don't generally put this on here for forms, because it's kind of silly to have them on top of forms. But for reports, it's nice to know when this report was printed out. So you can see this was generated August 18th at 3 p.m., for example. If you don't want the time on there, just click on the time and press delete. And now you just have the date. Just like forms, reports have different views. There's Report View, there's Print Preview, there's Layout View, and Design View. Design View we'll cover in a future class. Layout View is what we're in right now. We can come over here and resize some of these columns, for example. Right? The height of the row is dependent upon the data in that row. As you can see here, for example, these cells right here require multiple lines. So the row height is going to be higher. If you resize these just right, sometimes you can get some of these rows. Yep, see how they shrink down? There we go, see? Just like form design, report design is more of an art than a science. Now, if you actually want to see what this is going to look like when you print it out or create a PDF file out of it, drop this down and go to Print Preview. This will show you what it's going to look like on the printed page. Your mouse now turns into a magnifying glass, and you can click to zoom in to different areas, and then click to zoom back out again. Want to see up here? Just click up here, and then click again to zoom out. This view gives you a better approximation for what the report is going to look like when it's printed out, because sometimes when you're designing the report, what you see isn't always what you get. The designer's pretty good, but Print Preview gives you the best possible approximation for what that's going to look like printed out. In the bottom right corner, you can use this little bar here to zoom in and out. So you can get bigger or smaller. We can use the navigation buttons to go to page 2, page 3, and so on. Up here on the ribbon, you can change the size of the page. Right now it's set to 8.5 by 11, standard letter paper, but you can go legal or any of these other sizes. You can change the margins. right? Normal, wide. Right now they're set to narrow, a 1/4 inch margin around the page. You can go to wide margins if you want to. Notice the bigger margin around the edge of the page. I'll go back to narrow. Over here in the data section is where you would go to export this report into various data formats. You can save this as an Excel spreadsheet, a text file, a PDF file, or you can send it as an email attachment. Under More, you'll see there's Microsoft Word, an HTML document, and some more advanced database stuff. Let's say I want to save this as a PDF file. I'm going to click on the PDF button, browse to where you want to save the document. I'll put it in my Documents 599 CD folder. Change the name if you want to. Customer list, PC resale, for example, confidential, whatever you want to put in there. You can save the type as PDF or XPS. XPS is Microsoft's open document standard to compete with PDF. I think at this point most people still use PDF files. You can open the file here in Acrobat Reader after it's done publishing. Resolution, but if you want to make sure you get a smaller file size, pick minimum size. If you have to keep all the print quality, pick standard. Then when you're done, just click on Publish. And there's the PDF file. Looks pretty good. If you want to send someone else a document to look at, send them a PDF file. Almost everyone can read PDF files. When I close down the PDF file and come back to Access, I see this dialog box. It says Save Export Steps. Essentially, if you have a complicated sequence of steps you have to go through to export something, or you have a document that you're exporting all the time, and it's the same thing, you can save the export steps. You can even create a task in Microsoft Outlook that'll run for you automatically. But that was a pretty easy export, so I'm going to turn that box off. We'll cover this in a future lesson. For now, just click Close. Now when you're done working with the print preview, click on the Close Print Preview button. That'll put you back into layout mode. Now there's not a ton of difference between layout view and report view. Report view is basically for viewing the report on the screen, but you can't come in here and make changes. So if you want to display this information for some of your end users and you don't want them changing the report, you'll display it for them in report view or print preview. But again, for displaying information on the screen, I generally stick with what? Forms, that's right. You don't necessarily want your users coming in here and playing with the report design. And I'll teach you how to lock this down in a future lesson. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this report. Do you want to save changes? Sure. Let's give it a name. I'll call it Customer R. Hit OK. And now you'll see Customer R's right over here in my navigation pane. I can double click and there's the report again. Close it. Sometimes you might want to base a report on a query. This way you can set up criteria in your query and then put that information into a printable report. For example, the boss wants that list of customers from New York, but that's not very pretty, is it? So we can use that data to generate a report. So how do we do that? Well, click on the query, create, report, and there it is. Access creates a report based on the data from that query. Last name, first name, phone number, and so on. Now here's where it's handy to hide those fields sometimes. Let's close this. Close. Save changes? No. Let's go into the query, Design View, right-click, Design. Here's that Show box, right? Come right over here and don't show the state. Save it, close it, and let's create that query again. Create, report. And now notice you don't get the state field over here on the right. The data is still filtered based on that criteria, but the field doesn't show up when you run the query or generate any reports off of it. And yes, you can come in here and delete fields if you don't want fields in your report. For example, you can right-click on a column and come right down here and pick Delete Column. But I'm going to leave this one in here. Let's change the header up here, Customers from New York, PC Resale. And I can't type today. There we go. Now, if you want a report that looks more like a form where you have one customer per page. That's what the report wizard can do. So again, click on the customer table, create, and then pick the report wizard. The report wizard wants you to first tell it what table or query you're getting your data from, which we already did, customer T. You can see here how I originally got in the habit of using T's and Q's because this table or query didn't used to exist in older versions of Access. You had to kind of know which ones were which. Next, pick the fields that you want on the report. What do you want to see printed on the page? I don't care about customer ID. How about first name? Click on this little button over here. That brings it over to the selected fields. Last name, click. You can bring over all the fields with this button here. That brings everything over. Or you can simply double click on the stuff you want. Let's say I want company name, I want state, I want email and phone, and that's it. Now maybe a couple more. Let's go with is active and notes. Hit next. Next, you're asked if you want any grouping levels. This is handy. For example, you could group by state, and it'll put all the people from New York together. But I'm going to cancel that. I don't want to do that right now. We'll cover grouping levels in a future class. Next. Next, you're asked if you want a sort order for the records. Now, the report sort will take priority over the query sort. So if you base a report on a query, if you specify a sort here, it will ignore whatever sort you have set up in your query. You can sort by up to 4 fields, so I can go last name, then first name, ascending or descending, next. Now you're asked for the layout of the report. Tabular is what we worked with earlier. That's where you have rows and columns. Columnar is where you have the labels on the left and then the text boxes to the right, like a single form looks. Then there's justified. This looks kind of like an invoice. I'm going to go with columnar. There's portrait or landscape. I'm going to stick with portrait. Adjust the field widths so all the fields fit on a single page. That's fine. And then next. What title do you want for the report? That's what goes in that title box across the top. Let's change that to PC Resale Customers. Do you want to preview the report or modify the design? Let's just preview it and hit finish. And there's my finished report. You can see one customer here. If I scroll down a little bit, there's the next customer, the third customer. There's a date in the bottom left corner, page numbering in the bottom right. I can click to zoom out, use the navigation buttons to go to page 2, page 3, and so on. So that's a single report. A popular question that I always get at this point, is it possible to force a new page after each customer? Yes, it is possible. It involves getting into the report design, which I will teach you in a future lesson. That's a little more advanced. Okay, let's close this report. Now, sometimes when you close a new report, it puts you into report design mode. That's what this is. This is design view. So if you see that, just click the close over here, and that will close the report down. Now notice Access saved that report. The report wizard will save the report for you when you're done building it, whether you want to or not. Now, you can rename this by right-clicking and selecting rename, or you can delete it. I'm just going to delete it. I don't really want that report. Are you sure? Yes. Once you delete it, it's gone for good. There's no recycle bin for these objects. That's why, again, make good backups of your databases. Okay, now let's make some mailing labels. Click on Customer T, Create, and then come over here and pick Labels. The Label Wizard starts up. Come down here where it says Filter by Manufacturer, and try to find the manufacturer of the type of labels that you're using. There are a lot of them. Avery is a very popular manufacturer, so most other label companies will have an Avery standard number on there. Make sure you specify English or metric. I'm English. Then pick whether you have sheet-fed or continuous labels. Sheet-fed labels work with modern printers, laser printers, inkjet printers. Continuous labels are those ones that feed into dot matrix printers, and it's one big long continuous line of labels that just keep feeding into the printer. I'm going to go with sheet fed. Then find the label that you're using. So I'm going to find 5160s. Where is it? I'm going to scroll down here. 5160s. That's where you get 3 across on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and there's 30 per page, right? There's 3 across, 10 rows down. I think that's the most popular mailing label. But again, look on your box of labels to find the manufacturer and the product number. Click Next. Next, you can pick the font size, the font weight, and the text color for your labels. I'll keep all the defaults. Next. Next, we're asked to set up a prototype label. Set it up once, and then Access will replicate it for you. So here's what we're going to do. I want first name and last name on the first line of the label. So I'm going to pick first name, then click the button. Now, between first name and last name, I want a space. So I'm going to press space on the keyboard, then last name. Now to go to the next line, I'm going to press Enter. That brings me down to line 2. All right, company name is next. Enter. Address. Enter. Then I want city, and you can just double click on these. City, space, state, space, postal code, space, country, just like that. Now the number of lines you get here is dependent upon the font you pick. So if you pick a bigger font, you may only get 3 lines on here. I wouldn't go much below 8 point though. If you go too small, then the post office might not read your label. Let's click Next. What fields do you want to sort by? Well, if you're doing bulk mail, if you have a bulk mail permit, you might want to sort by postal code, then by address. Postal code will by default also be a sort by state then city, right? If you don't care about that, let me back this up. If you don't care about the bulk mail permit, you can go last name, first name in here as well. Next. What name would you like for the report? This is what Access will save the report as. Customer mailing labels are. See the labels as they will look printed, and then finish. And there we go. There's our mailing labels. You can click to zoom out. You can see we've only got half a page of labels. This reminds me to tell you a little tip. Sometimes when you have this half sheet of labels, you might be tempted to feed it in backwards to use the other half. If you have a laser printer, do not use a sheet of mailing labels in that printer more than once. If you've got an inkjet printer, don't worry about it. What happens is laser printers print by using heat. They basically sprinkle toner on the page and then use heat to bake it on. Well, what happens is that intense heat melts the glue behind the labels, and sometimes it makes those labels more prone to peel off inside the printer if they've been heated already. So I strongly recommend that you do not feed a sheet of mailing labels through a laser printer more than once. Dot matrix printers, inkjet printers, those are fine. Don't worry about it. If you print a lot of individual mailing labels, or just like 2 or 3 at a time, I strongly recommend you pick up one of those little label printers. Those are great. I have one on my desk. When you're finally ready to print this, just click on the print button. You'll see the print dialog where you can pick the printer, where you want to send it to. You can change printer properties. This menu is all dependent upon what printer you have. You can specify the range of pages, right? Page 1 to 4, for example, or just all pages. How many copies do you want? And then hit OK. I'm going to click Cancel because I don't really want to print this. When you're done, close Print Preview. That will put you back into label design. You can see here how Access set up that one prototype label. Then it uses some column formatting to print 3 columns of these. I will teach you about column formatting in a future class. It's a lot more advanced. In design mode, you get a peek at some of the more advanced things here. You can see the individual text boxes. Again, looks very much like form design. You can see the functions used in here, some string concatenation operators, detail section, page header, page footer, the ruler bar. We'll talk about all these things in the next couple classes. For now, we still have our training wheels on, so just click Close. That will close the report and put you back here at the navigation pane. Now, if you go to run this report in the future and you double click on it, it looks like this. What's going on? Well, by default, when you open up a report, it opens up in report view. You might not always want report view. The mailing labels, for example, look nothing like what you want. So what you can do is just come up to the top and pick print preview. And there's your labels. Again, I'll close that. Some of you may get this warning message. It says some data may not be displayed. There's not enough horizontal space on the page for the number of columns and column spacing you've specified. This basically means that your columns are too wide, but usually if it's a mailing label or a report that the wizard designed, it's set the column width exactly equal to the page width, so it generates this error message. If you see this for now, just ignore it. Just hit OK and everything should load fine. If it's a report you've built from scratch yourself, you may have gone too wide. In other words, you made your columns wider than the page. But again, at this point, don't even worry about that error message. Just click OK and continue working around it. Now, over the next couple of lessons, I'm going to teach you how to get rid of that error message. I'm also going to show you how to make a main menu form for your database, and you'll put a button on there so you can open up the mailing labels directly into print preview or print them straight to your printer. But for now, that's what you have to do. Open it up and then switch to print preview. Again, remember, training wheels. I can't teach you everything in one class. We have to learn how to walk before we learn how to run. So today we covered a lot of material. We built a customer table, a few different customer queries, a customer form, a simple customer report, a customer report based on a query, and some mailing labels. That's a lot of material. You now have the start of a great Access database. You've built it all yourself from scratch. Be proud of yourself at this point. Over the next several classes, we're going to be adding a lot more to this database. Just to give you a little preview, in Beginner Level 2, we focus mostly on form design, making your forms look professional. We'll learn about Design View and how to build a form from scratch. Beginner Level 3 focuses on more advanced table design. You'll learn about field properties, field sizes, the format property, input masks where you can force your users to enter in data in a specific way, setting default values, validation rules, and lots more. And those are just the next couple of levels. I've got dozens of different Access courses available on my website. Make sure you visit accesslearningzone.com to find out more. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment below. I post new videos here on YouTube all the time, so be sure to subscribe to my channel. Click to begin Lesson 12 right now. And finally, be sure to visit my website at accesslearningzone.com for more free videos and to sign up for the entire Level 2 series for just $1.